Hi everybody, I'm back again. I'll get right into it today. I'm kind of low on time. So what are cults after? Part 3 of cults and how we can help people escape from them. Um, of course, first they need to know that they're in a cult, and that is often the most difficult part. But what are cults after? What is it that they want? Whether we're talking about, a major religion, the cult of Jesus Christ, or, something small but vicious, like the murderous cult of Charles Manson. In a word, control is what they all have in common. Cults are out to steal your freedom. That just hit me, as far as articulating it in so few words, just hit me upside the head this morning, after a lifetime of dealing with cults in one form or another. So, freedom, liberty, choice. Notice that those with the cult mindset, especially in the US, in our society today, freedom and liberty, etc., has always been like a passion of Americans because that's what our country is supposed to stand for. So you'll see the cult, the MAGA cult, the Trump cult, they will embrace these keywords, these buzzwords, liberty, freedom, choice, and they want to be the standard bearers for these things that actually they are attempting to steal from everyone except themselves. They want that for themselves, but they don't want that for anybody else who has different beliefs, who looks different, who has a different sexual orientation, different skin color, anything different. You don't get the freedom, only they get it. That's what they are after. So those with a cult mindset cloak themselves in these keywords for what they are most afraid of in anyone but themselves. They're afraid of your freedom. They're afraid of my liberty. It's a disguise that many of them, if not most of them, don't even know that they're wearing. They are driven by their fear to seek ultimate power over other people. That is the driving force. They're afraid. So that's what drives their hate. We talked about this before. It's what drives and ultimately leads to violence all too often. It's what we want to avoid, if possible. So yeah, they're seeking ultimate power over other people, often failing entirely to apply their own rules to themselves. So they're ultimate hypocrites every time. Jesus talked about hypocrites plenty. He was very much against the Pharisees, who were the hypocrites in power of his time. And yet these supposed followers of Jesus embrace the Pharisees of our time. It's a disguise they don't even know they are wearing. And that's how you end up with the projection you see from a Trump-type character, telling on himself every single time he throws his lunatic tantrums, accusing others. All narcissists, whether they're malignant types like Trump or vulnerable types, eternally playing the victim, all narcissists are always terrified that their weakness and their emptiness is about to be exposed to the world, that they won't be able to continue deceiving themselves when they look in the mirror, along with everyone else. This is why they double down, they triple down on their lies, even in the face of mountains of concrete evidence disproving them. It throws them into a panic. The panic response is, no, 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 no. No, you're the liar. You're the liar. That's the only response that they have. And you can see the panic in it. Don't let that anger, that aggression fool you. It's fear that's behind it. They're terrified. It's a reflexive panic response. Tell them they're lying. Present them with the evidence, no matter how gentle you are. The inevitable response is that they will throw it back at you, shrieking, "You're the liar, you're the liar, you're the one doing this, you're the one doing whatever you just showed them they're doing." They just throw it back at you because they don't have any weapons of their own. They use volume and repetition in place of the evidence that they will never have because it's not there. We are now seeing the last stand of white Christian nationalists because they have seen the writing on the wall. US demographics tell us clearly it will not be long before they are the minority in every sense of the word. So they are deathly afraid of their shrinking power, their dwindling influence, their increasing irrelevance. But it goes further than that. Guilt also informs their terror. They have been abusing their power over women, over ethnic minorities, over religious beliefs that are divergent from theirs, even in a tiny way. This is why you see Christianity, for example, just because I studied it the most, but Christian sects, if they don't have any pagans to fight, they will fight each other over minor differences in their dogma because they don't have anyone else to fight. It's what they do. Any difference is terrifying for them. So yeah, they will persecute others for being different, and they know they're wrong, and they have guilt for that. For all the abuse, all of the colonization, the Dark Ages, and obviously nobody alive now is responsible for the atrocities of history. But, we do have to be careful because we are on the brink of committing atrocities in our time, or seeing or suffering them, depending what side you're on. Guilt informs their terror. The tables are turning, and they are horrified by the prospect of being treated the same way they have treated others. And rightly so. They know that they have long abused any amount of power that they had, and they're terrified of retribution, whether that's our motive or not. And usually it's not. I know for me it's not. I don't want revenge on any of my abusers. I just want them to leave me alone. And usually that is what we want. We want our freedom. You can have yours over there. But they're afraid of retribution, of vengeance. And we cannot underestimate the fear behind their aggression. The survival instinct is the most powerful instinct any living creature has. So yeah, I'm saying they're afraid, but I'm not saying, feel sorry for them, pity them, and be like, "Oh, you poor thing, let me make you feel better." Yes, we need to soothe the fear, but not in, I shouldn't have said soothe, if it misled anyone to think I meant softness. We can't afford that response at this point. It is not effective. Yeah, so all of us have seen a cornered animal. We have proverbs about it. A cornered animal will do literally anything they can to save themselves. And these rich white men are no different from any other wild animal. They are being pushed into their corner more and more each day by their own refusal to join the rest of us, the rest of humanity, in evolving toward a higher purpose and a greater calling. They've gone mad with terror, which is why they're dangerous. The fascination that MAGA Trump worshippers have with the tongue-tied, the authoritarian style of leadership is very typical of those who are terrified for their own survival. Dictators historically, know that their power lies in reinforcing the fear of the people under them, in redirecting their anger away from the ones who are actually in power toward those with even less power than they have themselves, if they're reachable, or redirect the anger towards some nebulous entity that doesn't even exist. You know, China, they'll redirect the people's anger toward the West. America is evil, you know, and here in America, they will redirect it towards the other, whoever's different, whoever's not MAGA. So the anger and the fear, these authoritarian figures know how to redirect it away from themselves, where it belongs, onto everyone else. Classic example would be the blue-collar workers' hatred of the imaginary welfare queen that Reagan made up and popularized. There is no such thing, but they all believe in it. And it makes them punch down instead of up. Putin, Xi, and Kim. These three are all figures of dictatorial tyranny on the world stage today. And we just saw two of them meeting. And there's a foundational reason that Trump adores them and has always expressed admiration of them personally and their power, their authority. They are the blueprint of his plan for himself and what he considers his country. We have to remember, and we have to remind MAGA, this is our country. Not excluding them. We're not excluding them. That's the difference. We are including those who are not them. That's the part they can't handle. They seem to not realize we're not excluding them. We're just including the rest of us. I lost my place again. So the peoples. This is the people's country. This is our country, all of ours. Not just the ones who look like you, who act like you, and who dress like you. This is a country that has been described since its inception as a melting pot. Unity within diversity. That's America. And look at the misery of the people who are under the leaders that Trump idolizes and wants to emulate. North Korean people are still starving. They eat this pasta that's made of cellulose, which humans can't digest. And they think, because they feel full, that they're being nourished. Meanwhile, even while they feel full, they are still starving. That's the state of North Korean people. Russians are brainwashed. They're being sent to war, under-equipped and underfed. China's people suffer every indignity, every brutality you can possibly imagine, and then take it beyond that. You don't even want to know what these people are living with under Xi. That is what Trump aspires to. That kind of power, that kind of widespread misery of the populace, feeding and elevating only those who are already rich and powerful, giving them more and more luxury and indulgence at whose cost? At the cost in blood, sweat, and tears from all the rest of us. How to deal with them? Because intervention doesn't work because of their persecution complex. We haven't really talked about that, but like the evangelicals, they idolize persecution because Jesus, there's so much, this could be a whole topic all on its own, but basically because Jesus is a martyr, essentially, they have elevated martyrdom. And so even though they are the ones creating martyrs, they want to be martyrs. They elevate persecution. So as soon as you say a word to them that hurts their feelings, they call that persecution. That's the luxury of being an American white Christian. Anyway, they're ignorant of what actual persecution is. Go to China and look at the Chinese Christians who want to meet and study the Bible on their own, not in a state-sanctioned church. Those people are persecuted. Those are the persecuted Christians of today. No one in America, no American, excuse me, no American Christian is persecuted for their faith. Being made fun of is not persecution. Anyway, that's a kind of a sore spot for me, obviously. Rational debate doesn't work either. And we talked about this because reality is almost entirely separate from their illusory world within the cult. Shock can sometimes help, but not in a vacuum. So what are we left with? You're gonna roll your eyes. Love. Yeah, I know. It sounds like new age bullshit. I know. But I'm not talking about soft love. I'm not talking about cuddles and snuggles and grandma's cookies. Not indulgence. That's indulgence. And indulgence is what has been shown so far toward Trump in our country by the media as well as by the GOP. Actually, even by the left. We're not addressing what is being said. All of the violence, hate, and just rancid spew that comes. No one addresses it directly. They view it with indulgence. We don't have that luxury anymore. If we want to preserve the freedom this country was built on, we need to defend it actively. Indulgence doesn't work. And this has deadly consequences. People have already died because of Trump. That's why I'm pissed. Heather Heyer in Charlottesville, she might have been the first, but she wasn't the last. And there are going to be a lot more unless we start taking this seriously and showing love that will undo the fear that drives these people against everyone that's different from them. We have to be productive. We have to meet their aggression and not pretend it doesn't exist. Indulging their lunacy only encourages them to take it further. That's why we're here now. I'm talking about the kind of love my patroness goddess, Morrigan, showed me. She's always shown it to me. And I could tell a long story about Morrigan too. But basically, she's the goddess, the Celtic goddess of war and fertility, and death and prophecy. So these things seem opposing, but they are combined in this patroness goddess of mine. And she told me many years ago that she would drive her sword down my spine, so I remembered how to stand up straight. And you know, that was terrifying to me, for good reason. It just meant that I faced years of karmic retribution for the terrible ways that I had treated others in my lifetime. I covered this a little bit, maybe more than a little, in some of my previous videos. I have behaved very badly, and I have paid for it. And I am now grateful that I paid for it. Because I often didn't even realize how wrong I was when I was wrong. I needed that correction as desperately as I tried to avoid it. And that goes for everyone. Every one of us at some point needs harsh correction that comes from love, real love, not indulgence. So yeah, I am now a stronger, better soul. And that's what happens when you are corrected in the right way, with love. The whole point of existence is healthy growth, improvement, progress. So for love to work, it must be tough and honest and just as unyielding as the cult is in their devotion to lies and fear. We must be just as passionate in our defense of the truth as they are in defense of their leaders. Love-driven fury must meet the raging cultists blow for blow, never flinching, never backing down. And I'm not talking literally, not talking violence. Violence is never acceptable, and I have emphasized that repeatedly. Defense, in terms of defending ourselves, yes, that may come. It may be a necessity. I don't even like to talk about it. And that's part of the problem. We're not ready to defend ourselves because we don't like to think about having to do it. But we're there. If we want to avoid violence, we need to answer the rhetoric. We need to answer the rhetoric just as passionately as it's thrown at us. Stop laughing it off. It's not funny. Stop pretending it's not dangerous. Stop pretending this is normal politics in normal times. Stop being squeamish about calling out bullshit for what it is. Stop treating this like a rational discussion and recognize in their minds it's already a civil war, at least of words. And yet, if we wanted to stay at words, we need to start using the words. We need to start using real words. If we wanted to stop at that, we need to be effective in how we use words. And it hasn't been so far. Indulgence isn't effective. So we must think and speak and act also. Do not give ground to their lies. Refuse to retreat. It doesn't matter if they call you stubborn. It doesn't matter what they call you. Let them call you that. Whatever. Do not retreat. Be as insistent on facts and evidence and truth as they are on lies. The time for indulgence hopefully will come. We can bake them cookies after they realize the danger they're putting us all in, including themselves. Lies don't hold up to lies do not hold up to evidence. That's why evidentiary standards hold in law, in science, in every form of objective, civilized discourse that we have that actually works. Sure, for religion, for your own philosophy, you don't need evidence. Believe what you want to believe. That is your freedom that we're trying to protect. We must make it very clear that this is not a both sides thing anymore. I mentioned before, I have no desire to convert anyone to my beliefs. I have no problem with churches, with mosques, with temples, with men, with all the people who attend organized religion, whatever. The left does have extremists, sure, like every other group, but as a whole, the left is now the only side fighting to preserve freedom for all of us, including those on the right. Not just freedom for the few and the privileged. If you're banning books from your own personal or family library, fine, that's your right. But if you're banning books from the libraries of anyone outside yourself or your family, you're the problem. If you believe certain sexual practices are wrong, fine, don't take them into your bedroom. No one on the left wants to force anything on you. On the contrary, choice and consent is the only absolute. Enforcement of consent is the only appropriate use of force regarding sexuality. Period. If you choose traditional Christian values, that's fine. No one wants to steal them from you and force you to join some orgiastic pagan frenzy of idolatry. We just want to be able to join one ourselves, if we so choose. because that's none of your business. Culture wars are inherently wrong because they want to debate the right of other people to choose how they live. We each get to choose for ourselves. No one may choose for everyone. One person's freedom ends where another person's begins. The areas of overlap need to err on the side of freedom in order for all of us to be safe in our personal liberty. Freedom is the hill that we need to fight for at all costs, because that is precisely what is at stake. Make no mistake, no more mistakes, at least. And when we discuss the shape of time, I mentioned the cycle of life, death, and rebirth that defines this beautiful, terrible world that we live in. You don't choose your birth. You also don't choose your death. And finally, you don't choose your rebirth either. I spoke in other videos of the extreme transformation of a butterfly from a caterpillar because that is the clearest metaphor I know of for what our society is going through right now. The butterfly begins as a caterpillar. We all know that. And the caterpillar is an eating machine. Kind of like a teenager. Anyway, caterpillars define gluttony. It only lives to consume. This describes our society with precision. Consumerist, instamatic, gimme, 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 more, more, more. Advertising, constantly making you think you don't have enough. So eventually, some of the cells in a caterpillar start mutating. They become imaginal cells, as I mentioned before. They contain the blueprint of the butterfly that it will eventually become. So the response is the immune system, which represents the status quo, is initially horrified by the imaginal cells. It rejects them and destroys them because they're a threat to the status quo. In the same way, our society's imaginal cells have been destroyed and rejected. Martin Luther King Jr., again, perfect example. And that's the function of the immune system, defense against what it identifies as disease or a threat. The civil rights movement of the 60s was a threat to the status quo. They recognized it and they sought to destroy it. But as you see with the civil rights movement, they couldn't stamp it out. Because the imaginal cells begin multiplying exponentially and grow out of control. That's where we are now. And the immune system of our dying caterpillar here in the US, the immune system is still identifying imaginal cells as disease, wrongly, in error. They think they are doing the right thing to survive. They don't recognize the transformation they can't avoid. And because they err in identifying imaginal cells as disease, they ensure their own destruction. And that's the stage we've been in throughout my lifetime and before. This is a transformation. It begins long before it's apparent, even to the creature who is undergoing it. And, now in our society with Gen Z coming of age, we're finally seeing the breaking point for the caterpillar our society is. The stage when imaginal cells start to take over. They build the chrysalis. And the caterpillar eventually has no alternative but to cocoon itself within the chrysalis for the transformation into a butterfly. It's going to happen. The caterpillar does not have a choice about the transformation. It will happen. And the caterpillar is utterly destroyed in the process. It becomes this rich, nutritious soup that feeds the new and growing butterfly. Its survival instinct was right in a sense. The life it knew, the self it knew, is over. But that transformation is inevitable. It will come just as change will come, no matter how hard we fight it. We each owe a death. There are no exceptions. That's a powerful quote from Stephen King's The Green Mile. It applies to society just as much as to the living creatures who make up societies, us. You don't choose your death or your rebirth, but you choose how you will approach it and how successful that rebirth will be. Your only choice is whether to undergo the transformation with grace that gives you wings after the struggle, or to refuse the change even as it's happening. That's what we're seeing now in MAGA and the Trump cult. They're refusing the transformation even as it's starting to happen. And that leaves the butterfly with shriveled, useless wings, dragging across the ground that you've trapped yourself on permanently, until a predator finds you and ends your self-imposed torment. If the U.S. ends with shriveled, useless wings, there are plenty of predators waiting, just waiting for that to happen. To pounce, to crush and digest us, the U.S., the American dream, to crush and digest it for their own transformation. It's already happening, the transformation. Our choice, and the choice we need to present to MAGA, to everyone we know, the choice that we have now: do we soar on summer breezes as butterflies with wings, strong from the struggle? Or do we be crushed underfoot and digested as fuel for another transformation? That's the truth we need to confront every lie with in our times. And Americans, we need to do this before the next election, lest we be lost. Talk to you later.